Hi there, and welcome to the podcast. My name is Karen Fabian, and I'm so glad you're here. I know you've got limited time, so thanks for spending some of it with me. Whether you're a brand new yoga teacher, currently in training, or you've been teaching for years, this podcast is for you. My goal is to help you feel like teaching can be easy, fun, and a natural extension of who you are, rather than something you have to do the right way, whatever that is, or something that feels like you have to work hard at it all the time. This isn't a podcast where I'll be telling you what to do or critiquing your teaching. Instead, I'll share frameworks, skills, and techniques you can experiment with to see what works for you, especially when it comes to understanding anatomy, cueing, and sequencing. I'll share ideas that may challenge what you believe about what it takes to be a yoga teacher. All I ask is that you keep an open mind, because some of what I share may sound different from what you've heard. We'll also talk about the mindset of a confident teacher, not only because it's such a big part of empowered teaching, but because it's rarely discussed. With that, welcome, and let's get into today's conversation. Hi there. Welcome to Conversations for Yoga Teachers. I'm your host, Karen Fabian, and this is episode 408. My goodness, can you believe I have recorded over 400 episodes? That just blows my mind. So I'm recording this on the evening of June 11th, 2026, and this will go live on Monday, June 15th. If you're new to the show, all my podcast episodes go live on Monday. And as I said, I've been doing this for 6 years. So if you are new, go back, take a look at the titles of the episodes, and I'm sure that there's something there that covers a topic you're interested in. What I wanted to talk about today is just a little bit of what's been going on my side in terms of a problem I've been having. And then I'm going to relate it to a broader topic or a broader problem, really, that yoga teachers experience. But I'm first going to talk about it through the lens of what I've been experiencing and how it's showing up in my business. And, the whole idea here, and I don't know if you noticed the title of the episode, What Changed When I Let Go of the Outcome. And right off the bat, I want to bring your attention to that title and ask you, what does that bring up for you when you hear that title? What changed when I let go of the outcome? Because for me, what I think of when I think about letting go of the outcome of something is I think of the Buddhist concept of non-attachment. And that's exactly the epiphany I had a couple of days ago, was that I was way too attached to a particular outcome. And once it was reframed for me through just some introspective thought and journaling I was doing, I was able to release all this pressure and all this resentment and all this frustration that I was feeling. So I want to just tell you a little bit about that and then relate it to scenarios that you may be experiencing when you're teaching that mirror some of what I've been going through. So lately I've been noticing something in my business that was really frustrating me. And it had to do with me either reaching out to yoga teachers and not hearing back, or doing things like holding workshops, seeing that there were like 20, 30 people who signed up. And then when I would do the workshop, there'd be like 10 people that would show up. So there was a big discrepancy between how many people signed up versus how many people showed up. And the email scenarios were things like I would send out an email to my list. I would pose a particular question like, if you're interested in learning more about anatomy, or if understanding anatomy is a problem for you right now, reply back anatomy, and I'll share with you how easy it is to learn it. And so the person would reply back, and then I would reply with some sort of, list of things to do or suggestions of things to try. It wasn't that I was replying back with my program link. It was just trying to engage the person in conversation. And the person would not reply back, even when they were the ones that responded to my question. So it wasn't like I was cold calling them. It was that person reaching out to me in response to something I just sent to my general list and then just disappearing. And the interesting thing in some of these cases were that this was actually happening with yoga teachers who weren't replying to my emails, but in that same week, they were coming to my free workshops. So I was seeing them sign up and attend my free workshops. And I was so curious, like, what is that about? Like, you won't reply to my email, but you'll show up for my workshop. So that I just didn't understand. And it was really frustrating me. Now, I have to say that I have always had a hard time with communication through email because I am always on top of my email. People all the time say to me, I can't believe you got back to me so quickly, like within a couple of hours of me getting their email. And when I worked corporate, that was the reputation I had, that I was really good at responding, really good at replying, always on top of things, never would ghost somebody, you know, always was on top of the plan of action. But I regularly have to remind myself that not everybody is like that. And so in these situations, I have to just remind myself people don't think of email the way I do. I am a unique kind of person, and most people don't get back via email in a timely way, have a lot of things going on. I also know because I get a lot of actual spam emails with people trying to give me funding for my business, or do you want this list of yoga teachers that I can sell you for contacts or whatever it is. I get a lot of salesy emails, and I'm sure you do too. And it feels really salesy and it feels very yucky. And of course, I never reply. And so part of me thinks that sometimes when people get emails from me, yoga teachers, of course, that's why they don't reply because they feel like I'm going to try to sell them something. And so I have, over the past several months, had all these thoughts, and it was really, really frustrating me. And the other scenario that would come up, which was really just baffling to me, was people would come to my workshops, and you might have even been one of the people, honestly. And I would go through whatever the topic was. I would be really mindful of the time, wanting to keep it to like 25 minutes, a half an hour tops. And then I would open it up for questions, and it would just be dead air. No questions. Every once in a while, somebody would ask. And I was saying to myself in my head, I can't believe nobody has a question. And for me, the reason I was frustrated with the lack of questions was that I couldn't understand how people could not have any questions. And so part of me was thinking, maybe I'm not explaining things in a helpful way, but just sort of practically, I didn't think that was really the issue. And there was really no part of me that ever thought, well, just on a basic level, maybe people don't have any questions, or maybe people just want to consume the workshop and don't want to ask any questions. But somehow in my head, I made it into this whole story like people aren't motivated, people don't care, people are just here to take the info. I'm giving all this energy to people and I'm not getting any response back. And I think as you're hearing this, because certainly as I'm hearing it, and I'm a little embarrassed actually to share this, but in the spirit of transparency, I wanted to do it. And also, when I shift to talking about how it might be coming up for you, that's why I wanted to do this lead in first. So you can see how I created this whole story about all this stuff, the lack of responding to emails, the lack of questions at the end of the workshops, you know, that whole sort of thing, and how I'm just creating this whole story around it, which could be completely false, which could have nothing to do with the reality of what's actually happening. So the realization I had was, and this was really just like 3 days ago, was that I was focusing on something that I couldn't control. I couldn't control if people reply back to my emails. I couldn't control if people ask questions in my workshops. I couldn't control if people engage with me on social media. The only thing I could control was what I thought, how I felt, what I created, what I shared, and whether or not I was consistently showing up. And so the shift that I made by just realizing it was this realization that I can't control any of those things that are frustrating me. So what I did was I changed my strategy, and this is only about 72 hours old, so I'm still in the early phases of it, but I can tell you it's had a huge effect. So what I decided to do was share mini workshops that I record. So basically, only to people who are on my mailing list to give them access to exclusive training content by recording short videos on Zoom and sending them the link. And I just recorded the first one, which is about how to teach sun salutations. And I picked that because it's a really popular topic. And there's a lot in there in terms of cueing and anatomy and the application of anatomy to movement. So I knew it was a topic that people would be interested in. But instead of posing it to people as here's a workshop I'm going to do on how to teach sun salutations, I just decided part of my new strategy is I'm not going to do workshops. Why am I going to block out time on my schedule, see 50 people sign up, see 10 people show up, have a bunch of emails from people saying why they can't be there? Like, why am I going to do that when it's not meeting the moment of really what it's not so much what people want, but it's not meeting the moment in terms of the behavior I'm seeing. And it's only causing me frustration. So today, when I created that mini training video, that mini workshop, and just did it in a recorded way and sent it out, it felt so much lighter, so much easier. I loved recording it. I love that I was recording it without that feeling of people are here watching this live and they're probably not going to ask any questions. I just could record it. I could just share what I love in a format that was so easy for me. And do you know the craziest thing? When I emailed it out to the people on my email list, and you may be one of those people, it was like within 15 minutes, I had almost 50 people view it. So I knew by doing that experiment, it was going to really resonate with people. That delivery model, rather than having people look at the time, figure out if it works for them, do the time conversion to their time zone, send me an email saying, oh, I wish I could come, but I can't, sign up for it, not show up, like all of those steps completely eliminated. And that to me was really a really interesting realization. And then I decided, you know what? Since I'm not doing live workshops for right now, like I'm going to test this process out for the summer. I'm going to just every week or so, I'm going to do one of these recorded workshops. I'm going to keep doing my social media videos, which I love. I'll keep in touch with my mailing list and I'll send them resources and not expect a reply back. Just watch. I can watch some of the stats behind the scenes to see if people are consuming these resources. And so the heart of the matter here is the relief I felt. This is the emotional center of this particular business problem I was experiencing. I felt so much relief over the past couple of days, feeling like I had let go of this frustration, this resentment, this not really anger, but really just frustration, this feeling like I was putting out this information, it wasn't being received, I wasn't being appreciated, I wasn't, getting people to say, yes, I'd like your help, like all of the things that had to do with me having an expectation of the outcome. And once I flipped that switch, and it really was for me, I could just flip a switch. I felt such relief. In the past 2 days, my whole work cadence of the things I do every day completely shifted. Now, instead of spending part of my day reaching back out to people who have sent me emails looking for help, some of these teachers have sent emails sharing, like really just really meaningful things. And I would reach back out to them because I would say to myself, I don't want that teacher to feel like they're out there by themselves. So even though they didn't reply back to my email, I'm going to email them again. I'm going to say, hey, a couple weeks ago you emailed me and you shared you were really frustrated teaching your classes and you're really having a hard time with your queuing. I would love to help you. Nothing. No reply back at all. And so when I decided to just stop following up with people, it felt like 500 pounds was off my shoulder. And it really shifted my energy to doing what I love, creating, serving, teaching. So I want to make the bridge now to how this might be coming up for you, because I realized that yoga teachers actually do this too. And I talk about it in the context of having an energetic cord between you and your students. And the really funny thing is, when I was going through all this for the past couple of months, I wasn't even seeing it through the lens of how I actually coach yoga teachers in my programs. And until today, I didn't realize I was doing exactly what I coach yoga teachers not to do. I was having an energetic cord between me and the teachers, on my social media, on my email list, who come to my workshops, that sort of thing. So for you, it might come up as wanting your students to like the class you just taught, wondering if they liked it, wondering if they didn't like it, wondering if they're going to come back. So that's one version of you having an energetic cord between you and them. Another common example I hear from teachers is that looking for feedback, at the end of your class saying, does anybody have any questions? And nothing, or wanting people to come up to you after class and ask questions. I remember when I was a newer teacher and I would go to class when it was taught by one of the senior teachers in the organization, and there would be a line of people, like 4 or 5 deep, to ask questions of the yoga teacher. And when I was a newer teacher, I wanted that to happen for me. I wanted people to wait for me at the end of class and line up and ask me questions. And that again is another example of attachment, of wanting a particular outcome. And so I'm wondering, is that on some level at all something that comes to your mind? Another example is when teachers read the body language of their students, trying to interpret, I wonder how that person's feeling about this class. I wonder, if that person's judging me, all those sort of internal stories that we can create. So the lesson here is really that we can't control the outcome of people. The moment we desire a particular response from people, we stop being fully present in what we're doing. And it is the catalyst oftentimes to us creating a story around what's happening that could be so far away from the truth of what's happening. But that's oftentimes how the mind works. And in those situations, we're no longer teaching because we love teaching. We're teaching to get something back. We're teaching with an expectation. We're offering with an expectation. We're offering with a silent demand. If I offer this workshop, I demand that you ask questions at the end, right? And you can see how silly that sounds. So instead of that, and if any of those examples that I shared resonate with you, what if it looked like you going in to teach your classes, focusing on what you love? What if it looked like you going in and not expecting any questions from people, and you just were going in there because you love teaching yoga? Inherently you're helping people, even if you don't get any feedback. And I feel the same way. I know inherently that what I'm offering is helpful to people, even if they never ask a question. And I know that for the teachers who don't reply back to my emails, even when they have reached out to me to start a conversation, to share a problem, I know that on some level, who knows what? Maybe something's come up. Maybe their life circumstance has changed. Maybe they stopped teaching. There's all these different scenarios that might have come up, but I can't control any of those things. And I can't control the person, but I can control what I do. And so can you. And so, if any of those circumstances, if any of those scenarios are things that you think of when you're teaching your classes, see if you can begin to loosen that energetic cord that you have between you and your students and instead focus on what you can control. You can control how you show up in your class, how well you know your sequence, the cues that you use, the work that you do to learn anatomy so that you can understand movement and how to apply anatomy to movement when you're teaching. These are all things that are within your control. And then the rest of it is just left up to the interchange between you and the people who come to your classes. And inevitably, the more we sort of let go of the reins, oftentimes the more things actually begin to happen. So I'll just sort of close with, just an inquiry question here. Where in your teaching are you looking for a response that you can't control? Maybe it's praise or validation or compliments. Maybe it's attendance or approval. So, what would happen if you simply taught what you love and you let the outcome take care of itself? So I hope you found this helpful. I hope this brought up something for you and maybe helped you reframe it or think about it in a different way. I am going to include a couple things in the show notes, my ebook, a couple of links to teaching resources. So don't forget to take a look there, and those resources will be there for you. I want to thank you so much for listening to the end, and I'll talk to you on the next episode of Conversations for Yoga Teachers. Namaste. Thanks so much for listening. If this episode got you thinking about a current challenge you're having in your classes or gave you ideas that connect to how you'd like to teach, I'd love to hear from you. I know a lot of teachers try to figure things out on their own by reading books, listening to podcast episodes, geez, even mine, or watching videos on social media. And while those things can be helpful, they don't actually solve the problem. What I've seen in my work with teachers is that problem solving and breakthroughs happen when you reach out for help and get one on one support, not in an hours based program, not in a group training, but in a setting where what's going on with you is the focus. If this sounds like the kind of support that would make a difference for you, send me a message on Instagram at Barebones Yoga or email me at karen@barebonesyoga.com. Just include the word podcast and tell me what's on your mind, your biggest challenge right now, or something you want to do next but aren't sure how to get started. I'll reply back with a couple of specific things you can try, and if it makes sense, we can hop on a call as well. You don't have to figure it out on your own.